Alright y'all, so it is that time. I've had the Google Pixel 7 Pro here for about a week now, and I've been taking photo samples, video samples, watching favorite YouTube content on it, scrolling through Instagram and Twitter, testing out the battery life and all of that. Now there's some things that I found that were good with this phone, and then there's also some things that I feel like Google needs to take some of that money that they got and just get it together over there when it comes to the smartphones. But nonetheless, welcome to my 1 week with the Pixel 7 Pro. So for starters, let's go ahead and dig down into how I actually feel about the design of this phone. Now, if you guys are new here and you don't know how I use my devices, I don't put cases on my devices because I like to test them out as they were intended to be used and see if the phone can actually last through normal usage. So with the camera strip, because we got to start there, right? I like the look of it. I just don't like the materials that they decided to use. It looks like it's premium, right? With this whole stainless steel looking vibe, but it's actually not. It's more of like a plastic aluminum material, and it doesn't, to me, warrant the whole $900 price tag that they got with this phone. Now, I will say, with my 1 week usage, I did notice that it doesn't actually scratch up like some reviewers are saying, but it definitely feels cheap for sure. Also, keep in mind that this whole camera strip is definitely gonna have a lot of like dust particles that's gonna build up there, so you definitely want to make sure you guys keep some type of cleaning cloth because it will back up a lot of dust right there. Also, throughout my usage, I came to not like the whole glossy and slippery back choice that Google went with in terms of design. Now, glossy backs to me has 3 disadvantages. 1, it shows fingerprints like nobody's business. 2, it's extra slippery. And 3, it just feels cheap and look dated. Every time that I would sit this phone down on my arm of my chair, y'all, my lap, my table, it would just slide right off into the floor. And honestly, y'all, I could see a possibly cracked screen in my near future with this phone. I think a better choice with this phone would have been more of like a matte glass finish, like something that we get with Apple and Samsung on their devices. This way is not as like a slippery nor of a fingerprint magnet type of device. And overall, y'all, I feel the design as well as material choice just feels kind of dated, if I'm being honest, which might have been okay if the price wasn't $900 to $1,200 depending on the storage option you guys go with. But we're gonna talk about that a little later in this video, so keep watching. Now, as I continue to use this phone here throughout the week, I decided to come to a couple familiar places around the city and just snap a couple photo samples, testing out every aspect and part of this camera, daytime as well as night. But let's go ahead and start with the daytime. So I chose this spot here at the park that I like as my first stop, and I honestly took a crazy amount of photos while I was here, but here's some of the favorite shots that I captured. I think overall the photo quality is really good when you have a solid amount of daylight. Now, one feature I did enjoy while taking photos is this built-in leveler. It has haptic feedback letting you guys know when it is level. Now, to some this may seem small, but I did notice that it helped me like whenever I was capturing something, just to make sure that I'm not taking any crooked photos. Now, I also like when you guys tap on the screen to focus, you get controls to be able to adjust the brightness, the contrast, as well as the temperature right there on the spot. And to me, as a creative person, I kind of like this whole vibe because it allows me to kind of tweak the photo as I want to, so that way every photo can be different whenever I'm taking it. Another thing that could either be seen as either good or bad, depending on the type of person or photographer you guys are, is how fast the shutter button is on this phone. Like, y'all, it is ridiculously instant and something that I actually enjoy. Like, it literally, as soon as you barely tap on it, the photo is taken in a split second. Now, speaking of taking photos, I also like the G2 processor chip. I feel like it did a pretty solid job with using the AI to process the photos fast. Now, this is a big deal, y'all, because I noticed on the past Pixel models, the photo processing was a bit on the slower side, but with this G2 chip, it is noticeably faster in my testing. Now, continuing to go ahead and move around the city, I did test out the portrait mode on this phone, and I found out that the 7 Pro does a good job at separating the subject from the background most of the time with clean edges. However, I don't necessarily like how much extra texture and just AI processing that it adds to the photo to try to help sharpen this image a little bit more. It's almost to the point where it's like over processing the photos to me. I think Google should really take a step back, go to the lab, and not rely so heavily on AI to process the photos, but more on the physical camera hardware in itself. I actually prefer how the older Pixels actually handle the processing of portraits more than the 7 Pro does. But even with that, photos coming straight out of the Pixel 7 Pro during the daytime look really good, regardless if you guys are using the ultra wide or the zoom angle lens. Now let's go ahead and switch to video. I felt during the daytime the Pixel 7 Pro did just like an okay job. Like, for me, I felt like the video was just too over processed to me. To me, it's not something that I would personally use to film like content with. I would still much rather use my iPhone 13 or 14 Pro for that. Like, it looks good on the phone, but as soon as you guys take it off the phone, to me, that's where things kind of turn south for me. Honestly, y'all, I'm starting to notice this as a pattern with Android devices. I feel like Android is like becoming kind of like this facade, to the point where it's like they're making things look great on the phone, but as soon as you guys take them off, it just falls out the window, just starts to look bad. Whereas with Apple, I feel like it's not like that, because Apple tends to retain a lot of that same information and quality even if you take it off of the device. I don't know, but I'm not a fan of the Pixel 7 Pro for video quality at all. Although I did think it did a solid job when it comes to using cinematic mode on the Pixel 7 Pro, but y'all let me know in the comments if I'm tripping or not. So after all of that, I did want to test out the camera in low light performance, but it was still kind of early in the day, so I wanted to go ahead and kill some time. So I checked out a place that a good friend of mine, CJ from CJ Unplugged, he kept telling me to check out this restaurant called Mali. So I figured, hell, I got some time to kill. I might as well go in here and check out this place and get me something to eat. So I ended up ordering the General Tso chicken that comes with egg drop soup, pot stickers, and white rice with a lemonade, which that handmade lemonade was absolute fire. But before I went ahead and dive down into my food, I decided to just snap a quick photo. Now, during my time here, I spent a lot of time just kind of chilling on my phone, scrolling through Instagram, Twitter, and I felt like this is also the perfect time that I can tell you guys about the battery life. So far, my experience this week when it comes to the battery life has been somewhat positive, but that's with an asterisk. Now, to me, a successful battery life on a phone is, can I make it through a workday with mapping out directions, occasional web browsing, being active on socials, listening to music, watching videos on Netflix or YouTube, all within an 8 to 10 hour period. And to me, y'all, this phone definitely did that and then some. Now, it's not on the level of something like an iPhone 13 or 14 Pro or Pro Max batteries, but it is still solid enough to where I feel comfortable getting through my day with still having a little bit of juice left over. So after I went ahead and played around on my phone for a little bit and finishing my meal and saying to myself, yo, this place is actually really good and that I'll definitely be back, I needed to go ahead and drive to a location where I wanted to get some nighttime photos as well as videos. So I hopped in my car and drove to a place in St. Louis called the Central West End. Now, there's usually a lot of people and things happening in this area, and it's just an overall popular place in the city. So I decided to walk around and snag a couple shots, and while looking at the photos, I noticed that the Pixel did a pretty decent job with low light performance, only when using the main camera lens, and that's sticking on that one-time zoom. But when I started to use the zoom as well as the ultra wide angle lens at night, to me, this is where the image quality just completely fell apart. And that also includes using the front-facing cameras as well. I felt in low light conditions, it did just okay. But if you're wanting the best quality while shooting at night, I promise y'all, stick to that one-time zoom using that main camera lens. Don't be chasing them waterfalls that you ain't used to. Now, while I was down in this area, I also went ahead and took some video samples at night, and I have to be honest with you guys, I am not a fan of video quality on the Pixel 7 Pro while filming at night. Now, this is coming from an Apple user I know, which to me is still king of the video smartphone. I don't care what nobody says. I felt like in my testing, the Pixel seemed to rely too heavily on AI to process the video results again, versus just putting good quality cameras in this phone for video. One thing I would notice was this weird camera jitter that would happen when walking, and that was having the stabilization turned on. It looked good on the phone screen, but as soon as you take it off the phone and you post it on social media, the video quality just completely falls apart and just looks grainy. On top of this added smoothing effect and just over processing, and overall, man, the video quality was bad and nowhere near top tier to me when using at night. So after I finished taking all the videos, I spent some time with playing around with the phone back in the studio, and some of the things I noticed while messing around with this phone throughout the week was I didn't necessarily care for the side button placement. I wish they would actually flip the power button as well as the volume buttons around. Like each time I would tap the volume button thinking I was actually locking the screen, but in turn I would actually just be increasing or decreasing the volume. To me, it just seems like an odd placement for them to put the volume button and the power button. It just seemed off. One of the other things I had issues with was getting it to recognize my face when unlocking the device. I could literally rarely get this to work right. Like it would have to be a good amount of light in order for it to actually recognize my face and unlock the device. And even though we have the in-screen fingerprint reader, I didn't feel like that was the best either. I mean, it works when it works, but I definitely noticed that it took way more tries than I would like to get into my phone. But when it comes to overall performance of this device, I thought it ran pretty smooth for the most part. Again, using it to reply to emails, watching content, being on socials, taking phone calls, closing and opening apps, mapping out directions, replying to text, all of that, basically all the stuff that you would just kind of do on your phone, it handled pretty smoothly. Now, when it comes to software on the Pixel 7 Pro, I feel like this is the main reason you guys would buy a phone like this. It has literally nothing to do with the cameras or the hardware on this phone. It is purely software. Like, for example, being able to screen calls that could be like annoying telemarketers bugging the hell out of you, or just having quick access to control your lights or your thermostat, or easily being able to access your Nest doorbell camera. It's just perfect for people like me who are invested into the Google ecosystem with other devices that they make. Being able to control everything right from your phone natively, it's just fast with that G2 chip. It's just clutch, y'all. And I also love the whole UI on this phone. It just feels like so fluid and just natural. So, should you guys buy this phone? I think honestly, y'all, it depends on your budget and what you guys are wanting out of an Android experience. If you are a person who wants a very well software focused Android experience that takes great photos during the daytime and nighttime using the main lens and a mid-level phone for video, then I think it is a good option. I will say though, I'm not a fan of the glossy back as it's just way too slippery for me, but overall, I think it is a decent phone. However, I would not pay $900 to $1,200 for this phone at all. I think that is a complete stretch, and just I would rather them like price this phone somewhere around like $600, $700, but that's a topic for another video. So there you guys have it, man. My 1 week experience using the Google Pixel 7 Pro. I'm currently working on my 1 week experience with the Pixel Watch. If you guys would like to see that video, go ahead and leave a like on this video and let's get it to 2,000 likes. That means everybody who's watching this video and made it to this part of the video, just go ahead and hit that like button and we are there. Now, if you guys want to see more content like this, just go ahead and click on that subscribe button and join the squad. And like always, make your move and always remember your why. And I'll see y'all in the next one, squad.